after the presentations. Again, please do keep your questions coming. So without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Oluwashola. Oluwashola, you have the floor, please. Are you there?
Thank you so much, Temitayo. Can you hear me?
Very well now, please.
Right. Thank you so much. You were reading it, I was like, really, is that our profile? I'm excited to be here. I was, of course, with this team, say some 2 months ago, or I don't know if it was 3 months ago, and I did have a great time. And so when the team reached out to me to say, let's do this, I was like, I clearly cannot do this alone. There is somebody, there's an amazing person that I know that will be of value, that'd be great for, you know, the person to join us on, which is Charity. So super excited to be doing this today. Yeah, so let's just dive right into it. Charity, next slide. All right, I don't think I need to introduce myself again, like profile, but I just wanted to mention that one, if I would say 3 things about myself, it would be 1, I love corporate communication and PR. 2, it would be that I love to volunteer for advocacy causes that I'm passionate about, and I do that on the side. So I know a lot of them need, you know, comms managers, and they probably don't want to pay and all of that. So I prefer to volunteer my time there. And then I studied dramatic arts for my undergraduate in Ile-Ife, Obafemi Awolowo University. So I, you know, very proud of the university. Yes, I did my master's in Ghana, but I prefer to talk about like my undergraduate because we're greatest Ife. Yeah, next slide.
All right. So thank you, Shola. It's definitely a pleasure to be able to get to do this with you. Hi, everyone. My name is Charity. As mentioned, I'm currently in Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm a strategic communications and brand specialist. That's how I love to see myself. And one of the things that I really love is reading. I'm an avid reader. That's after a day's work, when I'm feeling that I need to do something to unwind or something like that, I love reading. And then secondly, when it comes to communications, I view communications and PR as telling a story that communicates to people's hearts. It's not just about talking about this brand, we launched this company, we are doing this and the other. I see it as storytelling, and you're telling the story of a brand, making sure that it connects to people. And thirdly, I do see myself as a techie, in as much as I'm not a mainstream, say, software engineer or something like that. I am really fascinated by technology. And especially the day and age that we are living in, everything has been changed by technology. And a great example is actually this call that we are on. Who would have imagined, how many years back, who would have imagined this happening? That I'm in Kenya, some of us are in Nigeria, and we are able to communicate through the power of technology. And I really love seeing where technology is taking us, even with the future of work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charity. And then we'll just go to what we are supposed to cover today. Now, I like to do this a lot when we're having sessions, because I feel like if we do not set goals for things, we probably will not be able to measure at the end of the day. And so for me, and what I would want everyone on this call to take and stand after this call and be able to articulate well would be 4 things. The first is, I would want everybody to understand the value of PR. Now, I know that we have comms professionals on this call. However, the value of PR to organizations and the value of PR to your colleagues, I would want everybody to clearly understand that. Now, I want everybody to understand that when it comes to PR, you literally, to be of value to your company, you need to be aligned with business goals. You can't do PR independent of what the business goals are. And thirdly, I would want everybody to know the metrics that matter. Now, while I know, and we all agree on this call, that it's so difficult, very extremely.
Well, I think there is a power outage over there. It suddenly went blank. I don't know if Charity would like to take it off from there while we wait for Shola to come on. Are you there, Charity?
Yes, I am. I think.
We can barely hear you. You are still on mute. Can you please unmute yourself? Can you go ahead, please?
Are you able to hear me now?
Sure, perfect.
Great. So I was saying that I can be able to take it up from where she left. And she was talking about the four main things that we need to get out of in this call. She'd already talked about understanding PR value, that it's important. Yes, as PR practitioners, this is why we're in the field. We love it. We know the importance of PR. But I think one of the major challenges is, what is the value of PR to other people? How do we get to articulate that? So understanding that, making even others understand that PR value. And then the next thing is aligning to business goals. And I can see Shola is back. And she can just continue about aligning to business goals.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. I think I already touched on aligning to business goals, my check. I wasn't sure you heard me, but then I would love to go to metrics, the metrics that matter, right? I know we understand as a as a comms department that it is very important for us to, report on everything that we're doing. And how do we report on these things? And why do we even need to report on these things? And the reason we have to report on these things is because we need to show the value of our department. We need to show the value of our units. And so that means metrics matter a lot. Now, the other thing that I want us to take out of this call is the fact that when it comes to PR as a department, there's, I know we always talk about external and internal publics. The internal publics are very important. And we also need to leverage PR tools to be able to explain to our colleagues the value of our unit and why they should see us as a valuable team member. And so for us, that's what we term as internal PR as a tool. We need to leverage internal PR to tell the story of what we're doing. Because if the people in-house actually understand what we're doing, then it makes our work easier. You're already on Egypt launch. Do you want to go back?
Sorry, something moves. Let me just fix that.
It's okay. I mean, I'll just continue, right? Even before you share the slide. And so while we're already aligned on what our talk is for today and what people should take out of this, I would want to start with what is the value of PR reporting? Why do we need to report our work? Why is it important that people have to understand our work here? And we're not going to do this alone. And I know they told us that we have 45 minutes to talk. I feel like that's a lot of time. I always prefer to take more questions from people. So we'll be as brief as possible. And if there are things that you do not understand, or there are things that you've jotted down before we started this call and that you want to ask, I'll prefer for us to spend time, giving answers to all of the things that you have to ask us. And when it comes to what is the value of PR reporting, I want this to be very interactive. So I want people to unmute, please, if we can. The major question for every PR, or the major worry for every PR person, is that we always sometimes feel intimidated when our colleagues are actually reporting their numbers. So if you're sitting in a meeting, especially when you're sitting in a management meeting, or even if it's not a management meeting, if it's a company meeting, when everybody's reporting numbers, you see marketing reporting their number, you see sales reporting their numbers, you see finance saying that, last quarter, these were the KPIs, this is the revenue, it has gone down. You see everybody reporting numbers, and you're telling yourself, what numbers do I report in PR? How do I show my value as a department? Because most of us feel like when they need us the most is when we have crisis. So when the company has crisis, they are constantly looking for, what are we going to say? Where are we saying it? How do we say it? Now, everybody sees the value of comms. But without crisis, it just feels like we're there. And they'll call on, it just feels like they're paying us salary and they don't really need us. But when there is crisis or when we want to launch a product, they then see our value. Now, it's not supposed to be like that. And I'll say this, wait, I wanted to be sure. Is everybody aligned with this, my thoughts? Or is it just myself and Charity that are in this line of thoughts?
If
Oh, I can't.
if community members are unable to unmute and speak, you can just keep your messages in the chat box, and we'll be happy to read them to everyone.
Actually, please write in the chat box if you're unable to unmute. But I want to believe that it's not just, myself and Charity that are going through this. I feel like it's general. You're aligned. Thank you. I see your comments. Now, so what we need to do is that it takes being proactive to show our value to the company. It has to be, my mommy said something that you have to be deliberate. If you know that you want to go and fetch water, and all your mates have been fetching water, water with this small bowl, and you want to be deliberate and show your own value, you can decide to go for a bigger bowl so that people can see that you are fetching your own water in a different way. It's the same thing with this PR thing. Now, everybody is reporting their numbers. People are talking about the fact that, last quarter, if you see the trend, they're even coming to present it in graphs. And you're telling yourself, as a PR person, my father, what am I going to report to these people? It's actually not hard. It's not. The first thing is you need to, if you are the only person in your department, or you're a team of people, you all need to sit down together and agree on what is value to the business that we need to position well. So what does the business want to hear from us? We understand our role. Our role is to tell the story of this company to external publics and even internally, so that at the end of the day, they are able to either buy our product or buy our service, or have a perception of our product so that they can choose our product over others. That's your work. However, I might feel like there's no product launch, there's no crisis, and it's a whole quarter. Who do I report? You need to be proactive. Now, the only way to be proactive is, and I'll give you an example. There was a time in Andela, which is why I really needed Charity on this call. There was a time where everybody needed to show the value of their department in Andela. Everybody. It's like everybody, you are thinking about your work and you're like, how do I position it so that management understands what we're doing? And what did we do? We came together as a team and said, how do we report the value of our units? Firstly, we needed to send a monthly report to everybody in leadership. Now, the next question is probably, what are we now going to send? Firstly, we aligned on the goals of the department. So regardless of, we're doing a product launch, we're announcing a grant, we're announcing this, what's it called now? We raised the fund. Apart from all those things, what are the things that we're proactively doing? So we began to share monthly updates with leadership. Now, what were we writing in this monthly update? Now, you need to also identify the important people internally that need to be on that thread. Is it your CEO? Is it your CFO? Is it your CMO? Who are the people that need to understand what your department is doing? They need to be on that thread, on that email that you're sending. Now, this was how we did it in Adela then. We began to share, so we did a table. We put, because I was in charge of Africa, so we put the country, we put what the initiative is, and then we put results and tag and the links. Now, under Pan-Africa, what we began to do is we thought about what's the gap? What's the thing that we need to do as a solution? But it's only reliant on the comms team to resolve. So we thought about the fact that, wait, actually, we've changed our messaging as a company. We understand it internally, but nobody understands what we're doing externally. So we literally pivoted the company model, but we haven't communicated this. So we thought about, okay, what's the quick win here? We need to be able to create a deck that explains what the company is about. And this deck is supposed to be an external deck, such that if the CEO is going to talk somewhere, if anybody in leadership is going to talk somewhere, even if just engineers, if they're going to talk about the company externally, this is the standard deck. And so we revamped the messaging of the deck. Now, look at it. This wasn't, it wasn't something, so it was part of the business goal to pivot the direction of the company, to pivot our business model. What is the work of comms? It was the work of comms to be able to put that together and articulate it in writing, so that people are able to explain the business to anybody externally. And so that was not doing something independent of what the company goal is. It was part of the business goal to pivot to the business. And so as comes, we quickly just tapped into the fact that there is a need to revamp the messaging. And we created a new deck for Andela, which was a huge win for us. Like we literally created explained this, took our time and shared the deck with everybody internally. And people began to say, God bless you. Thank you so much, for doing this deck. I've been looking for how to explain it, in a sales pitch. I've been looking for how to explain the new business model, but we took it upon ourselves to do that. And then after doing it, my people, we did not just do it and share it. There was a way we positioned it when we're sending it to internal stakeholders to say, this is the gap. The company has done this. We need this, but we've taken it upon ourselves to go ahead to create this deck because we know that this is the value of this deck and this is what it will do. Leadership at the point, our COO then sent an email to us thanking the department. That's how to show the value of PR. That's how to report what your department is doing, even if there is no product launch. Look for the quick wins. What are the things that you can do? And you know that the only solution is a comms solution. You take it upon yourself and then you go ahead to do it. And then after doing it, you just don't do it and leave it. You do it and position it well to your internal stakeholders so that they can see the value of the department, because we can easily be disregarded in a management meeting or on the major table. We can. Now, the next thing we did is we began to report the country, some of the things we were doing according to the different countries. So are we pitching external engagements? Did we, put together what the key messages is? So we did something called like the messaging tracks for all of our key executives. We looked at them and we're like, what should they be focused on? What should the CEO be talking about? If it's about a girl child, should it be taken by, the CMO? What should the country director be talking about? Should the country director be talking about the future of work? Should they be talking about the future of technology? We created speaking tracks for everybody so that when we get external queries and to say that we need somebody from your company to come and talk, we can already tell who will go and talk externally because we have existing speaking tracks for our key executives. Now, we just did not do that again and then left it in our drive. No, we shared it. We shared it with leadership. Hi, everyone. This is just to say that, we came together as a team and then we've created the speaking tracks for everybody. This is the document that explains what this person is focused on, what this other person is focused on. We are happy to work with you to, to position what else you want to portray externally if it is not captured in this document. We did all of that and we always send it in our monthly reports. Now, what we found after 3 months is that after consistently sending those messages, you think people are not reading it. People are actually reading it because they are beginning to now see the value of the department. And then we'll talk about the fact that what are the pitches we are proactively doing? So is there an event happening? How do we position our executives to be one of the keynote speakers there? We also send a report of that. So part of and then not just saying, oh, we're positioning them, we would talk about the fact that this event is key to our business because if we talk there, or if we get a speaking engagement there, we would, this is maybe if you look at the demographic of the audience, these are people who would normally, feed into our target audience, and it'll be great to directly engage them because we can easily tell the brand story there and it will resonate with them directly. All of those things, positioning matters. And so the PR is very, and I'm sure you know because we're all comms professionals here, is very important for every business. But you know what? It can easily be shut down. If you are thinking about, if a company is thinking about revenue and they're saying, oh, what's the department that we need to quickly cut down on? Now, your role as a comms person in that organization is to constantly show the value of your department so that PR or comms or corporate communication, whatever it's called in your department, in your company, is not the first or the second or even the third to look at when it comes to cutting down costs. People need to constantly, and then we shouldn't be just that department that is needed when we have crisis. You need to constantly show how proactive you are, and you need to report it and position it well, constantly to management, so that everybody sees the value of the department. And so that everybody can then trust the credibility of your work and the work of your colleagues. And so my next slide will be talking about how do you make the PR, your PR work, how do you make it align to the company goals? Now, the first thing that you need to do as a department is that you need to, if you do not understand your company goals, your department should better go and sit down with your CEO and understand and be able to articulate what the company goal is for the year or for the quarter. Now, once that is done, you then need to say, okay, what's the comms goals that we can create, in alignment to these company goals? Now, note that nobody cares about what you are doing if it does not align with the company goals. Nobody. If the company is saying, I'll give an example. If the goal of the company is to increase the support to SMEs by 10%, your job as the PR person in that organization is to say, okay, if this is a company goal, I think that what we need to do in our department is to do a credential campaign. Now, credential campaign is the campaign that speaks to the essence of the brand. What I need to do is to do a credential campaign to tell the stories of all the SMEs that we've helped in the past. Now, if you tell the stories of the SMEs that we've helped in the past, it will do one major thing. It will make other SMEs see the value of your company, and then maybe, subscribe to whatever your product is, to say, oh, it's in alignment to the SME. Now, what you've done as a comms department is that you have aligned that goal with the ultimate goal of the company that says we want to increase the support to SMEs by 10%. Now, where you might not be able to report that the story of the SMEs that we've told has now directly, increased the subscription of SMEs to the business. No, but you can directly measure the number of people who have seen your story because of where you placed it. And then you can say that, I placed my story here on maybe Niger Branching. Niger Branching has how many numbers? She has over 200,000 followers, of which 80% of these followers are actually small businesses. Now, that means you have directly reached 180 small businesses in Nigeria, which is in alignment to our company goal. Because the company can only make the goal, but it is your job to engage directly with a platform that resonates with your target audience. And after doing this, do not forget, you come back to share the monthly reports of the value of comms in alignment to the business. Now, the reason why people do not respect, I've noticed that the reason why people do not respect us as comms professional is because they just feel like, I want to send an email. Can you please help me look at it and draft it? I'm sending this thing to these external stakeholders. Can you please help me redraft it? That is not our job. It's a good to have, to help your colleagues redraft email, but your value to the organization is that you need to create stories. You need to tell the stories that are in alignment to the company goals, such that at the end of the day, when your salesperson is reporting numbers, when your marketing person is saying that this is the, what's that thing called now, Charity? For marketing, when it's the top funnel, what's that thing called? I've forgotten all these marketing technologies. Anyway, when they say, this is the conversion rate from the top funnel to the next funnel and all of that, and they're reporting all the numbers. You're telling yourself, what do I report? I'm reporting the stories that is being told. I'm reporting the perception that has moved from this to this, because that's the value of comms to the business. If I have not said anything today, and if you have not taken out, if you have not taken anything from my slides, and I'm going to wrap up because I want to take a lot of questions, is the fact that you cannot create your comms goals independent of the business goals. It needs to align. You cannot continue to do your work in your department and say that, oh, we know we are doing our work. No, you need to report your work to management. You need to report, and Charity will take time to explain how to report those things to management. But you need to think about, what have we done? What's the difference? What's the value that we brought to this organization that no department can? Report it in a way, because we're comms people, so we know how to position these things. Report it well and send it all the way up. Once it gets up, people will begin to pay attention to your department and begin to bring you, if you were not part of management meeting, they would want to bring you on to management meeting to say, hey, we need a comms POV here. We're trying to launch this product, but from a comms POV, what are your thoughts? And then you begin to gain recognition and respect in the company. Comms is important, we know it's important, but we need to show the value of the unit to our internal publics. Thank you so much. Charity, I would hand over to you to take us through metrics.
Yeah, so I think even when it comes to metrics, the biggest thing is what just Shola has mentioned in terms of aligning to your company goals. So now after you've aligned to your company goals, you now go to the next thing. You've decided that we are going to do this campaign because the company goal this quarter is probably focused on this new product. Or as Shola said, we want to increase our outreach to SMEs by 10%. So before you even begin any campaign, before you begin even any sort of activity, you start asking yourself, what does success look like? What will a good, if we are looking at the end of the quarter and we are saying, oh, we've had a good quarter, and still aligned to company goals, not just PR outputs. Let me mention that one of the things that most PR practitioners tend to do, especially when you feel like you're drowning, there's a lot of numbers that are being talked about, as Shola had mentioned, and you're feeling intimidated. What is the first thing? And I know some of us have done this probably. The first thing that you do is you call your journalist friend and you ask them, can you give me a slot somewhere? Because you just want to showcase that some work is being done. But that's not how to go about it. As much as that might be a quick win, it might be very easy for you to get a connection close to you. Tell me, can we be part of, and ask them, can we be part of your event? Or probably ask them, can I get an article probably on this day or next week or next month or something like that? Because we thrive on relationships as comms professionals. But let me tell you that that might get you a quick win, but it does not solidify your position, as Shola was saying, in terms of alignment to company goals. So after you have aligned and you've seen this is where the company is going, then you look at, what does success look like? What are we going to report? And then now after that, after you've identified what are the things that are going to be reported on, now you look for channels, for methods, for the best programs to be able to achieve that. We have very many channels and methods at our disposal. It's not only about doing press releases or doing a feature interview or things like that. Today with digital PR, there are many ways to achieve some of our goals. So you prioritize and choose what is the best channel or the best way to achieve that goal. And then finally, because you started measuring, or rather because you started your campaign or your activity, asking yourself, what does success look like? So even as you're carrying out your activities, you now have the metrics that can be able to measure the outcomes that you need. And let me just mention that let me mention a difference also between measuring outcomes and measuring outputs. There's something that we keep on measuring. Oh, we got 10 media mentions. We got this number of clippings. You're showcasing the number of clippings in the newspaper, in the radio, in TV, and all of that. And that is important. But what does that mean to the business? That is a PR output. It is not necessarily an outcome. An outcome, for example, if last quarter, your company got 10 mentions or 10 features across 360 media. And now in this quarter, you have 20 mentions, meaning you've increased by over 100%. So go further and explain. What does that mean? So that means people are listening to us more, or that means our target audience is better positioned to take a new product. So you get to align it. It's not just about the output. It's not just about saying we got 1,000 followers more. What do those 1,000 followers represent according to the business? What does that mean? And let me give an example of a launch that we did a while back. And just speaking about, going back to quantifying goals. The first thing that we did is, because we were going into a new country, we were going into a new market. And because we were clear as to what we wanted to report at the end of it, we wanted to increase the market share. It was a new country. People have no idea about the company. So at the end of that campaign, you want people to have an idea about the company. So how do you get to measure that? And how do you get to quantify that in numbers? So we started off first by doing a baseline, I forget the full name, a baseline market research, just going around and asking people, have you ever heard about this product? Have you ever heard about this? So that you see the penetration of the brand or of the product in that particular area. And then we launched our campaign and we reported on it. As you can see, just giving you an example, we already had a target of what we wanted to achieve. We wanted to achieve getting the mentions of the company or the features in about 70 outlets. We got 164. So you have numbers and you can be able to say this increased from this to this and why? Why did that happen and what does that mean? So it happened because we employed this strategy. And what does that mean? That people are eager for the company. They are eager for this. So that is insight that can be used by now sales, by product people in their strategy. And they begin feeling, comms is giving us insight that is valuable to us. We were also measuring what is called on message. So our target was to get 80% on message. And what is on message? When we are saying we are targeting 100 outlets, if you want your on message means how many of those outlets are carrying your message as you want it to be carried. So for example, if we define the comms avenue as a network of comms practitioners, and 2 outlets showcase that the comms avenue is a network of comms practitioners, but another 3 list it, for example, as a webinar series. So both of those outlets, or rather the 2 outlets and the 3 outlets, have given a positive message about the brand or about this particular company. But the message is not really aligned with how you define yourself. So those are some of the things that you are able actually to measure by checking what is the sentiment, what is the messaging, but most importantly, what does that mean for the company, and giving that some value. And then finally, also just again, something that Sola has mentioned in terms of after you are done, report it, showcase it. If there is if there's a town hall, you are talking about comms. You are letting people know that this is what is happening. These are the strategies that we have taken. This is what is going on. And I think this is one major lesson that I actually got from Sola. This is something that she's impacted in my career. And I remember she kept on telling me, Charity, you're doing good work externally, but internally, do people know? And it's something that I actually find with many PR people. We are the ones running around, creating talking points for executives, chasing journalists, making sure that the video is on point, but we are never in front of the camera. And you get so used to not being the person in front of the camera, not being the person who is going to speak. You're just watching them speak after you've written the talking points. You get so used to that you now start forming a habit of not even talking about the work that you're doing internally. And it's actually very, very important for you to showcase that work through what I call consistent and comparative reporting. So consistent is that you're doing it, if it's weekly or monthly or quarterly, whatever cadence makes sense for you and your company, it needs to be consistent. And then when we are talking about comparative is in Q1, our market share was this percentage, and now we are here. So you might not have a product launch, as Sola mentioned, but there are things that you can be able to do to showcase the progress or the movement or to be able to say our target audience, we have about 80% market share for our target audience in terms of brand awareness, how much they know us. But we are now doing a new campaign to move from just awareness to make them loyalists, to make them advocates of the brand. And you showcase the data. You're saying that in Q1, we were at 10%. In Q3, we are now at 30%. And then get even reports out there that now that using illustrations to communicate, get reports out there that talk about what is the scene in Kenya for telecommunications, for example. I work in a telecommunications company. So being able to say that for the telecommunications industry in Kenya, they get 10% of coverage in the leading newspapers every week. Out of that 10%, our company is taking 5%. So it may seem, or rather our company is taking 50% of it. So it may seem like probably getting one media mention or one piece of coverage somewhere may not seem as significant, but it is how you position it using reports and using industry data to showcase the progress and the importance of what you're doing. And then you also report that back internally as well. A lot of work goes into just getting one piece of coverage. We know that. Before you pitch, before you write those talking points, before you're coaching your executives, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of man hours. And it might actually feel a bit disheartening when you don't know how to position all the work that you're doing. When people are questioning, oh, what do you do? What exactly is happening? But with consistent and comparative reporting, whether or not there is an initiative or not, once you align to company goals, once you start thinking, what does success look like from the word go, and then do consistent and comparative reporting, both externally and internally, then you will get to see the results. I think, Shola?
Great. So thank you so much, Shola and Charity, for that great presentation. And while we wait for questions from community members, I'd like to quickly just highlight a few things you have mentioned during the course of your presentation. You highlighted the fact that comms people should be able to tell the stories of what they do a lot of internal PR so that people who are internal stakeholders are aware of the kind of great work we do. We talked about distinguishing between output and outcome, aligning our work with the company's goals, sometimes doing baseline market research in environments where we practically still new. And particularly, you also mentioned doing consistent and comparative reporting. And one of the things that actually stands out for me in your presentation is the fact that we need to be doing month-on-month comparisons, quarter-by-quarter comparisons, year-on-year comparisons to tell beautiful stories. Well, I have a question just before we receive questions from our participants. Now, for people who work on the agency side, now sometimes they are faced with issues about aligning what they think is actually or should be the real reporting requirement to what the organization they work for sees as their own reporting requirement. Now, for people on the agency side, what advice do you have for them?
Right. Okay, so I'll take a stab at it, and I don't know if Charity wants to share something. But for people in the agency, I think that what the agency, I was on the agency side for like 7 years. I worked with Red Media Africa before I moved to the client side. And I've noticed that my expectation for my agency is that they constantly need to show me their value. So you know those things about insight. You know, you can be very comfortable, especially if it's a retainer client. You don't share trends. You don't, okay, so look at this NSAS thing now. I don't know, agencies are supposed to particularly show their value to all of the brands that they have as either their projects or retainer clients, because it's just like us trying to show ourselves internally as a client to other departments. Your job as an agency person is to constantly show your value so that they don't even think about firing you, even if they're thinking about, reducing their revenue or reducing their spend. because they know that you are giving them insights, the insights that no other person is giving them from a com standpoint. And you're constantly telling them that look at the trend of this, and which is what I did with my own company as well, because my company is even a global company. It kept saying, this is the trend now, it's day one, we're monitoring, this is the conversation, this is how I think the brand can be positioned here, but we're just sending this report. It's day two today, here are the insights, this is what the media is saying, this is what I think that you should know. All of those insights, you need to constantly tell your clients as the agency side. So if you're on the client side, when you're thinking about how to show your value to your colleagues and management, on the agency side, it's constantly thinking about how to continuously show your value to your clients. And then the client will think about your retainer and they'll be like, actually, I appreciate the fact that I have these people on retainer because I see their value. That's the advice. Look at what Bill Gates said.
Go ahead.
Bill Gates said, if I was down to my last dollar, I would spend it on PR. I mean, we all know Bill Gates, right? And that's because they understand that perception, brand perception, it's as in, it overrides every other thing. Because if the perception is not right, there's no reason why people will go ahead to go and look for your product over others or over your competitors.
So Charity, do you have anything to add?
Being on the client side, I actually haven't worked in an agency, but I've managed a number of agencies. And I think what Sola has mentioned in terms of being there when your client needs you. So feeling that probably there's something going on and your agency is the first to tell you, have you seen this? I think we can do a campaign on 1, 2, 3. What do you think? So I feel like these people are constantly thinking, they're constantly working, they're giving me new ways of doing things. I think that's the first thing in terms of showcasing value. When it comes to reporting, I would say agree on the reporting or agree on the metrics early enough. So don't just start activities from nowhere because you want to showcase something. You actually sit and come up with a strategy. These are our activities. This is what we think. This is what is achievable in the quarter. And you agree on that from the beginning. I feel now being on the client side, that works very well for me because we sit and we agree. Okay, you're going to deliver this every month. You're going to deliver this every week. You're going to deliver this every quarter because of 1, 2, 3. So there's that side of agreeing from the word go, what the metrics are from the beginning and constantly reporting on them. But then things change. Things change as the quarter goes and things happen. You cannot predict what is going to happen. And that's where the second point comes in of just being proactive and saying, what do you think about this campaign? Can we do this? Just solving a problem for them. Or just being there when they need you. That makes someone feel like, oh my goodness, these people, they helped us when we needed them the most.
Great, thank you, Charity. Thank you, Sola. So the key word there is agree on the metrics from the outset with the client before getting to work. And while we wait for questions from our community members, I also like to ask, in the area of doing internal PR for our communication efforts. Now, in a situation where as a communications unit or department, we also face some challenges with certain higher ups, certain senior leaders. Now, I'm sure some of you might have actually found yourself in this situation. Now, what is your advice to us as comms professionals in this regard?
So I'm not clear on your question. Your question.
Okay, what I mean here is that sometimes you want to do your internal PR, you've done your tracking to say, oh, the CMO should be talking about STEM education for girls. Oh, the CEO should be talking about the future of work and all of that. And then you are thinking, oh, the CMO should be able to speak on the International Day of the Girl Child, but she's not, or he is not cooperating. Now, in this regard, what do you do?
Okay, so I have an advice there. I think that is our job. And I feel like as comms people, I always say we're most sensitive to things. While other people don't pay attention to some things, we pay attention to it because we're comms. What we need to do is, especially for senior leaders, you need to be aligned with them. That's the only way your job can be easy. So you can already see that when your CEO wants to go and talk, this is what they're excited about talking about. Tie it under their speaking tracks. You need to be aligned because you can't, one thing I've noticed as a comms person is that you cannot impose speaking tracks on people. It needs to be aligned. So I had a boss then that likes to talk about the future of work and the possibility of what applicants can do. If it's any other thing, the guy will not talk about it. But come rain, come shine, if he has anything that is, and that's because we sat down together and said, I had a session with everybody to say, what do you want to talk about? What do you like to talk about? So that it would, when you're now doing that, it feels like you're actually doing your job, but it feels like you are helping them. And one thing I've noticed is that these people, all of them, they want to be known. Everybody wants to be seen externally. Now, it's your job, and it lies on your table to be able to conclude on who is going, somewhere to talk about the company, so it's on your table to say, no, the CMO is not talking here today because I feel like it does not align with, it's the CFO that should take this one. That's your job. So but you need to work closely with all the senior management to align on their speaking tracks so that you can help them build it out. You build out the messaging for that and tie it back to the company's goals. Because somebody cannot go and be talking about the future of work and it has nothing to do with the company. Then you shouldn't be talking about it. So you need to tie it back, and it's your job to do that. But you need to work closely with them so that they can see that you are helping them.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Shola. So we have a question from Victor Ilo. The question says, what are the best monitoring tools for PR reporting? I think Charity may be able to take that question.
Okay, so that's actually quite wide, if I may say, because if you say for PR reporting, it's various things. Are you looking at social listening? Are you looking at social media? Because if you're looking generally, for example, at social media in terms of reporting, I think there's Hootsuite, there's Proud Social. If you're looking at social listening, which is different, which is picking up the sentiments out there on various tools. So there are also different tools for that. There are also different tools for measuring your coverage. There are some organizations where you can be able to measure your coverage yourself as a PR professional, but there are some that just get mentions, and especially for big companies. You get to get mentions and coverage every other day, whether or not you send out a press release or not, someone is mentioning your name. So you can't be the one trying to go through every outlet, trying to find out what we mentioned somewhere, or did we get coverage somewhere? You may need a tool for that. So in terms of what are the best tools, it depends what is the purpose, what do you want to achieve? I think those are the main areas that I can be able to see. So there's social listening, there's social media engagement, and then there's also in terms of coverage and mentions out there. So all of those are different tools. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. I don't know if you still have any additional questions for now, but before we close the program, now for external engagement with higher ups, in terms of the messaging, in terms of identifying who to speak and all of that, I want to know, are there any special tips that you would like to share when sharing key topics that your organization is actually focused on? Any tips to guide us while we set out to do this?
I'm sorry, but I want to be sure I understand your question so I can answer right. The question isn't quite clear. So are you talking about the fact that if you're trying to put together what you should be pitching externally, how do you do that?
Yeah,
is that
exactly. The key, now you talked about aligning goals with your key messaging and all of that. Now, is there any specific tip you like to give to us while we set out to embark on this journey?
Yes, so, I mean, for me, I think it's pretty simple, right? And I think I mentioned it. If you look at your company goals, then from your company goals, you need to create key messages from the company goals. When you create the key messaging from the company goals, then you now divide the key messages into what conversation can we begin to have in this light. So what we did, and Charity, I don't know if you can remember, at some point, put together, before we could create even the speaking tracks and what are speaking engagements, what people should be saying externally, we looked at what's the messaging that we want to pass for this year or for the quarter. Now, after doing that, we then divide it. Let's cluster it into, will it be, and the ones I can remember, will it be the future of work in Africa? Will it be the future of work in the world? Will it be the possibility and the potential of Africans being able to lead, whatever the product or the service is? Once you align on that, then you are sure that even if I want to pitch stories to media, I'll probably pitch these two. Then if I want to look for speaking engagements for our executives, I will pitch these two. Then finally, if I want to pitch interviews, I will pitch these two so that it's crystal clear. But the first thing is you need to understand the goals, the business goal, create key messages out of the business goal for the year, then take out from that key message. You can begin to now do speaking tracks, you can begin to do talking points, documents, and all of that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shola. So before we call it a day, I'd like to go to Charity. Now, you mentioned some of the tools we can use to track mentions online. I know the majority of us on this call are quite familiar with Google Alerts. Now, do you know of any other tool that we can still use to track mentions about our brand, about our company, about some of our activities online? Charity, any difficulty on muting yourself? Okay. Can you please, we can't hear you, Charity. Can you unmute yourself again?
Okay, there we go. It was saying I can't be able to unmute myself. So in terms of the tools, I know, and this is not a plug for any company. So I know there's Meltwater and there's Macrack, but they come quite at a cost. So the Google tool is usually very convenient for most people. But there's Macrack and there is Meltwater, as I've mentioned, in terms of looking at social listening and checking the mentions and things like that. And then let me just quickly add to the question that Shola has responded to in terms of how do you align your key messages and all of that. I think something else that's very important so that you can be able to balance both sides of the media and then the side of the company goals is also looking at industry trends. So in your particular industry, what are the media already talking about? What are the stories they are already looking for? And then finding ways to align that to what your company is doing. So that you can find very great key messages, but if they're not what the media is looking for right now, then you might also have a challenge there. So for instance, with everything that's going on with NSAS, and then that's the time that you're sending out a press release on a product launch. You might have the best pitch, you might have a very good story and all of that, but timing is also key. So in terms of moving forward with company goals, you also need to balance with the other side for the media.
Thank you so much, Charity. Thank you, Shola. I'm sure the majority of us on this call have learned a lesson or two from this masterclass, and we would like to especially thank both of you for making out the time to be on this call, sharing your perspectives on issues about PR reporting, creating value, and then telling people in our offices the value we bring to the table. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. And we hope that sometime in the future, we'll have you again to talk about another interesting topic that the majority of us will be passionate about. So before I call it a day, I'd like to invite Obagbemi to share any announcement, messages for community members. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you very much, Tim Tayo. Thank you very much, Charity. Thank you very much, Shola. It's been really, really, really helpful. I think that's all, so we can allow them go. Thank you very much. So how do we reach out to you, Charity, and Shola? How do we connect with you, maybe for more questions or maybe to just connect with you? Can you please drop your handles with us? Thank you. Thank you, Shola.
So Shola, would you like to take that first? your name on your Twitter and
Yeah, okay.
your name
They've
on
dropped their
LinkedIn.
email. I think that's fine. Thank you very much.
Sounds good. Thanks very much. Have a great evening. Bye.
Bye. Babajide, the recording will be available. We'll post it in the group. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Bye.